2 years ago today, the words COVID and coronavirus were really just starting to become part of our daily language. Case counts were suddenly climbing, and more than 20 deaths in at least 34 states made people start to pay attention. It was 2 years ago tomorrow that Governor Charlie Baker declared a state of emergency, calling on business owners, schools, and other organizations to shut down for a few weeks.
The highly contagious nature of this disease means that if everyone plays their part in slowing the spread, the number of people who become infected and require medical attention doesn't spike all at once, which would overwhelm many of our systems.
Flattening the curve, we said it over and over again. At the time, there were 92 confirmed COVID cases in Massachusetts. Now, 2 years later, 6 million people have died globally, and we're nearing a death toll of 1 million people in the U.S. alone. Grim milestones we never thought we'd see, but we've also moved over those 2 years from a time of fear and uncertainty with little information about how COVID spread to gain a greater understanding of the virus. Research and vaccines led to reopenings and hope. With a return to normalcy, or perhaps a new normal, on the horizon. It's a 2-year-long journey my next guest will be reflecting on tomorrow night. Arun Rath is the executive editor and host of All Things Considered and In It Together here at GBH. Welcome so much. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you virtually.
Yes, exactly. You know, I can't tell you what a great comfort In It Together was for me. It came at the window when I would find a reason to escape the house as often as I could to go do an errand during the lockdown. Talk to me about how this great radio tradition of gathering folks during a time of crisis, how it came to be here on GBH.
Well, it really came together the week of the lockdown. In just a few days, we pulled the idea together for this, that we would do an hour-long show, would follow All Things Considered. We would take calls and talk to experts, and that was the basic idea of it. Because you remember what it was like 2 years ago. We were all freaking out, and we all had so many fundamental questions about how we should live our lives. Should we wash our groceries? You know, what should we be doing with our kids? It was just it was so much of a disorienting time that there was the need for it, obviously, right away. I think the way the durability of it was more of the surprise over how it turned into, well, as you mentioned, it being for you a really valuable resource over the months as the pandemic wore on.
Arun, one of the things that I loved about it was, of course, you know, obviously you spoke to experts and got the information and science as it was happening, and we're in a great fertile place here in Massachusetts for experts, but you also talked to real people who were having real experiences, and they were able to very articulately and eloquently share with you what was happening. Talk to me about some of the people that you talked to and how that really brought such a richness to the program.
Well, it's interesting because definitely the program has had more, you know, quote unquote, ordinary people feature than any other show that I've ever worked on. And it's really been one of the strengths of it, because I gotta say, every single ordinary person we had on was a great guest. I mean, we're talking hundreds of shows. That pretty much doesn't ever happen. You know, in broadcasting, there's going to be at least a couple of people who aren't amazing, but they were all fantastic. And we would just, you know, it was different from booking your typical radio program, because we were going right to people that we know. We had, my rabbi was on the show a couple of times. Had our my own veterinarian was actually on the show as well. So we did a segment talking about people who were facing, you know, keeping their pets in the during the pandemic. It really is, and I would say some of the most poignant moments probably were we did on more than one occasion, but one week in particular, we did a series of remembrances where we were talking to people, and again, not people you would hear from ordinarily, but about family members that they had lost. And we would spend, you know, a good, consider this, an In It Together length interview, a good 15 minutes talking with them about their loved one that they'd lost. And not only was it amazing for them and meaningful for them, but for all of us, you know, because we weren't able to grieve together for so long. So a place to grieve was maybe one of the most important things about it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that as well. I mean, we're approaching in the United States the figure of 1 million people over 2 years that we have lost. And I continue to be astounded that, I don't want to sound judgy, but I'm astounded that we're not more upset about that. And In It Together provided a place where folks could go and actually share the stories of their loved ones. And I'm wondering, as we hit this 2-year mark, what are your feelings when you were doing this every night, and we had all these other things happening as well, the call for racial justice and equity, as well as the election. What was it like for you to go through this and now be here where we're approaching this 1 million death mark?
Well, I think the show, in a way, In It Together, helped me keep my mental health intact to a large extent, because I was facing the same things that everybody else was. And I had this wonderful luxury, in a way, of getting to talk to these experts in real time and get answers to the questions. I mean, it really weighs very heavily on me, because I do the news, I do All Things Considered. Before I would do In It Together. And I was the person among the people every single day reading those numbers over and over again as they got into the thousands and into the millions. And it was really something to be able to have on In It Together, a place where I was started every show reading the numbers. But unlike the newscast, I could take a minute and just, have like a Walter Cronkite of just like, this is awful, everybody, and have a moment about it together. And again, I guess it's going back to having a place to grieve, which has been so important, and I think really helped give me strength getting through this.
Again, what I loved about it was great traditional radio at a time when we have so many other options, and many of them completely wrong and not reliable and giving us bad information. And I found a great comfort to have it be in a way that I grew up with. What can folks look forward to in this special pop-up edition?
Well, we're going to talk to a lot of the people that we have talked to over the couple of years. I would say the one that sticks with me the most, or that I think is going to stick with me the most, is Gladys Vega of La Colaborativa, who used to be known as the Chelsea Collaborative. We were talking about how we focused a lot on the show on the communities who were disproportionately affected by the pandemic, people of color, immigrant communities, and that's something that, Chelsea was a COVID hotspot and represented a lot of these people. And it was great to check in with her and hear how great they did with their vaccination efforts, but also to hear from her how much it meant to them to be heard and seen by GBH and all of us through this process. And her ask coming out of this is that please keep seeing us. So that's my big takeaway right now.
We direct folks tomorrow to the In It Together pop-up show. Arun Rath, thank you so much for the work that you have done on this. It's been exceptional, and I'm grateful to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.